afternoon, everybody. For the final time this season, welcome to Carrow Road. Norwich City's championship campaign, of course, concludes here today against already relegated Blackpool. Not much to play for on the pitch. Obviously, the highest that Norwich City can finish is a mighty 10th. The lowest they can finish is 13th from Blackpool, as we said, are already down. So a bit of a dead rubber, but it is, of course, Teemu Pukki's last game in a Norwich City shirt. 210 and out it will be for him. He's hoping to add to his 88 goals, although I think 9 is probably above him, to be honest, to reach Ewan Roberts' levels. But you never know. Pad, final day of the season. I mean, just before we get the team news, obviously we're expecting Teemu Pukki to start. That'll be in about a minute or so, very, very quickly before that team news drops. I mean, a season that probably is going to be remembered most for appointment and being quite underwhelming given what we expected last summer.
It's palpably not lived up to expectations, Connor. There you go. Yeah. I mean, David Wagner is at pains, feels like the last 2/3 weeks now, to message that the dial will turn. It will turn quite dramatically. We're talking of big summers ahead, big transfer windows, big pre-seasons. And if that is the case, and we'll hear a little bit more from people above him in due course, can't we?
Team news for you, and the headline, of course, Teemu Pukki starts as we expect and is captain as we expected as well. Norwich City line up like this. Gunning goal, Aarons, Omid Ahmedeli. I'm just trying to piece it together. Would that be Sorensen at the back? And Yanulis, Gibbs, Sarah, and Nunez as a midfield three. Hernandez and Jolis either side of Teemu Pukki. Obviously, probably expect Marcelino Nunez to become a little bit more advanced. I'll just read that again. Gunn in goal, Aarons, Omid Ahmedeli, Sorensen and Yanulis as the back four. There'll be Gibbs and Sarah as the midfield two. Hernandez, Nunez and Jolis as the three behind Teemu Pukki. The subs bench for Norwich City this afternoon. Tim Krul, Isaac Hayden, Adam Eder, Sam McCallum, John Rowe, Brad Hills and Abu Kamara. Paddy, that's an interesting lineup. Sorensen looks to be back at centre-back instead of Sam Byram, who, of course, is departing the club but isn't included in the matchday squad here today. Neither is Kieran Dow, who's also departing. Neither is Marquinhos, of course. So, interesting lineup and selection there from David Wagner in the final game this season.
Well, I mean, straight away, let's dive into it. Sorensen here. West Brom last game. Byram goes back in alongside Omid Daly. David Wagner comes out after the game. I can't remember exactly what he said, but in that respect, in terms of the previous 3 or 4 games at centre-back when it was Sorensen and Omid Daly, basically said it didn't work. So they looked unbalanced. You had a square peg in a round hole in Jakob Sorensen, but, today he's back in there. So, as much as I was starting to say in the previous answer that maybe today is the visible on the pitch sign of something turning and moving forward and looking ahead, I certainly don't want to see Jakob Sorensen as a centre-back moving forward into next season, because if so, then that much heralded decent transfer window hasn't gone right at all. And I know Gibson will probably be fit by then. Hanley won't be by the start of next season. But surely, particularly as there is speculation around Omid Daly, and you would think he was one if they attracted a certain level of interest, they might look to deal. And if that is the case, then they're going to definitely need to do something at that area. So maybe what we've seen in that 11 today is setting aside the sentimentality around Teemu starting and captaining today, is the areas that really need to be addressed in this window. That it's not just this season, for numerous seasons at centre-back, I think they've been found wanting. And when you're playing a makeshift midfielder at centre-back, as they have, that's not new. You can go back to it. Ibrahim Amadou, and Alex Tete playing centre-back. So, something needs to change in that regard. And then further forward, I like to see Gibbs in there again. I like to see him further forward, if I'm honest. I don't see him in the 2 in front of a back 4. I think he could be far more useful in a more advanced position. Opportunity for Nunez maybe to just lay down another little marker going into the summer and what's ahead. And Jolis as well. I thought he was bright in the first 25 minutes at the Hawthorns, but much like the rest of the team, they sort of faded pretty dramatically. But him and Yanulis, that looked to be a decent pairing going forward at the Hawthorns, and maybe we see a little bit more of that than all these strands we're trying to clutch to at the minute. But I think when the dust settles on this game, David Wagner isn't going to be putting too much from this game into his plans. I think they're separate to what we're going to see today. Today is all about really. It's Teemu Pukki's day, isn't it, ultimately?
Yeah, and I tell you what will be interesting when we come back for the new season at the start of August, just to compare how similar that Norwich City lineup is to the one that we'll be playing that day. But that's for another day. We will talk about Teemu Pukki, but just in terms of that midfield mix, Gibbs, Sarah, Nunez, like I said, big opportunity for Nunez, who has been quite inconsistent really in his first season at the club, but showing glimpses of quality. But it does feel like if he can get in pockets, he is maybe one of the few players who has the ability to pick out Teemu Pukki with the type of service that he wants.
Well, we've seen it, and it's been maddeningly brief glimpses. But then, you know, for Nunez, witness Norwich's season. You know, in very small sections of this season, you thought, okay, there's something coming together, something that could get them up and around it in the top 6 of the table. Didn't happen, and that's Nunez's season. When he first came in, bearing in mind, you know, he'd gone straight through. He'd played all the way through this year, last calendar year as it was then, in Chilean domestic football, and he looked ready to go, hit the ground running that first month of the season. What a player they've signed here, and he's gone into a bit of a lull in terms of his own personal performance. But then we've seen, you know, more recently that wonder strike he scored at this end of the ground, River End. Was it Birmingham that night? A player who's got that level of technique and that level of ability, it's just extracting it on a consistent basis. And if you get that player on a more regular basis in the final third, hurting teams at this level, that's an asset right there. But much like a lot of the players in this group, they haven't been able to perform over a consistent enough level to get themselves anywhere really realistically in contention for the top 6. So, you know, but it is another opportunity for him today, and you know, I think he's one they will persist with, because he was one of the 2 very heralded signings from South America last summer. They put a hell of a lot of work, hell of a lot of resource into that South American scouting network. I wouldn't be at all surprised if they go back there this summer for part of their transfer strategy. And I think when I look at Nunez, I also think back to Stiepermann. I think back to Mario Vrancic in terms of it really took him a full season, didn't it, at this level as well as it was in those 2 cases, to understand, you know, innately what's required, what areas of his game he needs to work on, what areas of his game that are really strong at this level. I'm just hoping he goes away and probably has a first break in maybe getting on for 18 months.
That's exactly the point I was going to make, yeah.
And then we see the Marcelino Nunez of the good spells this season, from the start next season, driving this team forward.
Yes, absolutely. We'll bring you the Blackpool team shortly. In fact, we'll bring it to you now. Here it is. They've got Grimshaw in goal, Connolly, Nelson, Thornley and Lyons as the back 4, Florini and Patino as the midfield 2. Free of bowler, Sonny Carey starts, former Norwich City trainee, also played for Kings Lynn as well. Hamilton on the left, and Morgan Rogers up front. Their subs bench includes 2 former Norwich City players, perhaps one a little bit more popular than the other. Their bench is Chris Maxwell, James Husband, Alex Lancashire, Tom Tribal, Rob Apter, Shane Lowry and Brad Holmes. Blackpool, as we said, already down. And on to their 4th manager of the season in Stephen Dobby, who's there on an interim basis, having replaced Mick McCarthy, which maybe would have made this afternoon a bit more fun if he's in charge. I don't know. Let's speak about Teemu Pukki, then Paddy, captain today, 210, 10th appearance. It will obviously be his last, 4th all-time goal scorer. The best goals.
So 88 goals in 210 appearances.
Yeah.
There you go.
I think he's got, in terms of goal contributions, it certainly takes him into the 100 as well. Yeah. So remarkable influence. But also what's striking about his record is 4th, but he has the best goals per game ratio of any in the top 3, if that makes sense. So, I mean, where does he rank in terms of the best ever Norwich City strikers for you?
It's funny. One of our media colleagues, who I won't give any confidences away because I won't name him, but he said he's into his 80th year now, and he was, as I was coming along there just before the game, he was talking about, because we had a little piece earlier in the week about some of the best players for Norwich in the Championship, and of course in modern times you talk about Wes, you talk about Buendia. He wanted to remind me there was, you know, some of the 59ers when he was a boy, and he used to come here, Bobby Brennan apparently, I think he said his first name was Bobby. So, you know, this debate will always go back and forth. Probably it's more of a generational thing and the players that have touched you. But there's absolutely no doubt in the modern era, which for me, you're going back 10, 15 years, maybe 10, 15 seasons. He's got to be the standout, really, with the fact that he was a free transfer. That record, that goal record is phenomenal. But also, it wasn't just goal. He wasn't just a prolific scorer of goals. He was a prolific scorer of goals in a team which functioned to the degree that they ran away with 2 titles at this level. And as we've seen graphically this season, how difficult it is to do that. And they did it twice, and he was the main man. He was the goal-scoring talisman. And I just think in the last week now, you tend to forget because it's, maybe in recent times it's, and he said himself in the interview with Ewan for the club that it hasn't always been very enjoyable. Yeah, with an eye, yeah, not an E. That it hasn't been very enjoyable in maybe the last 2 or 3 seasons, and you kind of know where he's coming from. But you don't. I think what we've seen in the last week in terms of the eulogies, in terms of the reflections on some of the iconic games that he was part of, the Millwall game down here, the Villa away when they clinched the title, some of those good days in the Premier League, the Newcastle hat-trick game. Yeah. I think that's come to the fore now, and maybe the last season and a half has kind of slipped back down the pecking order when you think and reflect on what an unbelievable player, what an indelible impression this guy has left on this football club and the area, as he said, to you. And so, whatever's going on around the club at the minute in terms of the dynamic and the mood with some of the fan base, I think today it is about remembering an achievement in modern era, which I think is unsurpassed, given, a player who they brought in for 0 in terms of transfer fee. And, I just hope it goes well today for him, for the team, and then at the final whistle, as I understand it, him and his family will get their opportunity to go round and take the applause and the appreciation. And it's nice when you do that, because I think back to Wes had it here, didn't he, against Leeds that season, John Ruddy as well, and these players who've really put a shift in for the club and brought success and been part of successful teams, they get a chance to say goodbye in front of the home fans who they've delighted over the years. And that isn't always the case. Daniel Farker went through the back door, didn't he, at Brentford, and plenty of players down the years.
Hux is the best example.
Exactly. So you don't normally get the picture book ending, and in terms of to wave goodbye to this stadium and this fan base, that's the least he deserves, because what a player, what an impact, and hell of a hole to fill now moving back into the sort of the here and now and this summer and the transfer window.
Yeah, beyond obviously Temi Pukki's last game, worth just mentioning as a footnote, Josh Sargent misses today's game with a shin injury, which I don't think is too serious, but just needs a little bit of a rest, which sounds a bit like a shin splint to me, but we'll see. Away from that, there is obviously some work to do on the pitch, and obviously a lot of it will get pushed into the summer, but 1 win in 10 in the Championship. They've not scored here since mid-February. That Marquinhos goal against Cardiff 4 games ago. I think 5 would be a record spanning back to 1920, so if outside the top flight, of course. So there's still stuff to play for, and like you say, that frustration, it's probably not going to take long if this doesn't go the way that maybe we all hope it does, to slip in the other direction. So there is kind of that element of it still to play for. So all that's left really then, Pad, is how do you see this game going? And I don't know if anyone really cares, but will Temi Pukki score? That feels like perhaps a more pertinent question.
It has to be. The man that he is, who for a period felt like he wrote his own scripts. And as I say that, who's walking along in front of us around the touchline? There's a man who used to write his own scripts, Mr. Huckabee. Yeah. What a legend he is. It's got to. Parking what's gone on, 1 win in 10 going into this game. If that group of players on that team sheet with him today don't want to go out there and do it for that man, because we know what a popular figure he is within the changing room, go and do it for him today and give him the send-off he deserves. Wes got that. I think John Ruddy won on his final occasion. Doesn't always happen, but you're playing a side who are heading to League One, so come on, let's at least send these fans away with some positivity and something of an optimistic note, and then we'll get fully into what's gone wrong and then how they're going to put it right, or try to put it right. But park that for now. Today is all about Temi Pukki, Norwich City, and parting on really good terms. And if they do that, then they should win the game. So for me, it should be 2-goal, 3-goal win. You, Connor?
Yeah, 3-0 Pukki hat-trick. Might as well, mightn't we? End the season, we're all a party atmosphere and leading into that. Let's hope that is the case. There you go. It's the final team news video of this season. Thank you all very much for your support and for watching these across the season. We will, of course, be back at the pre-season, I would imagine, relatively soon. But obviously enjoy today if you're coming or following from afar. Pink and Plus, the place to go for all of our coverage this afternoon, analysis and reaction as well. And enjoy your summer, and we'll see you again very, very soon. Thanks for watching.